following breaking news. A deadly officer-involved shooting in Roslindale. A suspect with possible ties to ISIS killed.
Investigators say he may have been planning an attack today. The Fed saying the man was armed and dangerous at the time of his death.
And we're following more breaking news. A major development in the Deflategate scandal. Roger Goodell with a final message about who will hear Tom Brady's appeal.
Plus, active anthrax spores sent through the mail, and some of it landed here in Massachusetts.
Storm winding down, rainfall totals big, 3 to 4 inches. Will we see more this week?
And developing at this hour, John Kerry on the road to recovery. New details after surgery at Mass General.
7 News at 5 starts now. Tonight on 7. Shots fired outside a busy pharmacy.
It's scary, very scary.
A suspect under federal surveillance, shot and killed.
They do what they were trained to do, and unfortunately, they had to take a life.
Did he have ties to ISIS? We have big story coverage of the deadly shooting.
And we do continue to follow that breaking news. First at 5, Boston police and the FBI shoot and kill a man under surveillance by the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Police say the man charged at them with a knife like that, a military-style knife. Boston police and the FBI were following this man because of that possible link with ISIS.
They say he may have been planning an attack today. The aftermath of the shooting caught on camera by a witness. You can see officers there surrounding the man on the ground. A second picture shows him on a stretcher being placed right into an ambulance.
We do have a team of reporters covering this big breaking story. Let's get started with 7's Steve Cooper. He's right outside Boston Police headquarters. So give us all the background and where things are right now, Steve.
All right, well, Kim, right now this is an active investigation that is expanding by the hour, it appears, because Boston police, along with the FBI assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force, we're told, aside from being in Roslindale, where this first started this morning, we now know they're at a home in Everett. And also, we've learned that just within a few short minutes, they are now at a home in Warwick, Rhode Island. Again, the search now expanding over 2 states here. All this after police approached a man this morning who was armed with a weapon, a military-style weapon. It was all caught on camera in the CVS parking lot in Roslindale. Investigators say when the suspect approached police and wouldn't drop this weapon, that's when they opened fire.
The level of alarm brought us to question him today. I don't think anyone expected the reaction we were going to get out of him.
Boston Police Commissioner William Evans talking about the dramatic moments in the CVS parking lot in Roslindale this morning when he says one of his officers and an FBI agent were forced to fire, shooting 26-year-old Osama Rahim of Roslindale, who had been under around-the-clock surveillance by members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Sources telling 7 News Rahim, armed with this military-style knife, was planning an attack that involved killing a police officer today.
All I can tell you is that the subject had been under 24-hour surveillance. This investigation has been worked side by side from minute one with the JTTF partners, including Boston Police Department and Mass State Police and some of the other partners.
Investigators say Rahim was ordered several times to drop his weapon, even before officers opened fire, hitting him twice. He was pronounced dead at the hospital.
We saw the video. It appears that the law enforcement officers were backing away before they exercised deadly force.
Sources tell 7 News Rahim was following ISIS on social media. Investigators won't say if he was connected to any sort of a terror cell operating here in the city.
I'm not going to say that there are or there aren't others. All I'm saying is we have to make sure our investigation into this individual is thorough and complete.
All right, another look at that military-style knife that police seized from Rahim. Now, investigators from the FBI will only say that investigators from the DOJ, the Department of Justice from Washington, D.C., are on their way here to Boston to assist in this investigation. As for the district attorney of Suffolk County, he says ultimately it is his office that will decide whether or not this shooting was justified. We're live outside Boston Police Headquarters tonight. Steve Cooper, 7 News.
Well, today's shooting also has large implications on the national level in the fight against ISIS here. NBC's Justice correspondent Pete Williams is live in D.C. with more. And Pete, we're learning there's another scene going on right now in Warwick, Rhode Island.
Right. There were actually, 4 searches today. Rahim's house, another location in the Boston area, in Everett. So I guess the third one would then be in Warwick, Rhode Island. Now, these other searches are to see whether anybody else was planning to do anything. These were people, authorities say, who were in touch with Rahim through social media. And the last I heard 20 or so minutes ago, the authorities were undecided about whether the people at those locations were planning anything on their own. What they say is that it was just within the last couple of days that they became very concerned about Rahim, that he started to say he wanted to carry out an attack, that it was some messages he sent yesterday saying that he might be prepared to carry out the attack within the next few days. Not necessarily today, but imminently. That's what they were concerned about. That's what they wanted to talk to him about. But as you heard in the news conference, they did not have an arrest warrant for him. This was moving so fast. They simply wanted to, in essence, confront him, question him, and they say that's when he pulled the knife.
Thank you so much, Pete Williams, our justice correspondent for NBC News there in Washington, D.C., with the very latest on this investigation. As he was talking about, their sources are telling 7 News that Usama Rahim was radicalized by ISIS.
We are learning more about the way that that terror group has been recruiting followers online. For that, let's go to 7's Cheryl Fiandaca. She has some information and is at our breaking news desk. What do you know, Cheryl?
Well, Kim, sources say the suspect was radicalized online with ISIS propaganda. Now, they have a big social media campaign out there and plan to carry out the deadly attack on a police officer. That attack, my sources say, was planned for today. Allegedly inspired by these highly produced ISIS videos and social media messages, police say 26-year-old Usama Rahim was under 24-hour surveillance. This morning, the Joint Terrorism Task Force confronted Rahim after learning, sources say, that he planned to attack a police officer today. Sources say the agents moved in before he could carry out his deadly threat to kill a police officer. Over the past several months, ISIS has been ramping up its messages on social media, calling for attacks using whatever weapons are at hand, including guns and knives. Rahim was shot and killed by police after they say he refused to drop a military-style knife. Sources say Rahim had been under surveillance for weeks, and the Joint Terrorism Task Force confronted him after discovering he planned to act on his plan today. ISIS recently used social media messaging to specifically direct its followers and sympathizers to attack police and law enforcement agents in the U.S. and abroad. In fact, recently, U.S. military bases were put on high alert. And you hear that sources are telling us that Rahim may not have been acting alone, but they're not sure if anyone was involved with these plans. Police are in the process of trying to get an arrest warrant for a second man in Everett. That, according to sources. And there, as you know, another scene in Warwick, Rhode Island. This investigation is clearly ongoing. Reporting live from the newsroom, I'm Cheryl Fiandaca, 7 News.
All right, Cheryl, I know you'll be working your sources and bringing us updates. We know the Boston Police Commissioner says Rahim was unprovoked, and people who saw it happen are speaking with us, speaking to 7 News. 7's Byron Burnett is at the scene with part of that story now.
Yeah, it was a wild scene, definitely a wild scene here in Roslindale. Those shots rang out right here in the middle of this parking lot, just as the businesses around here were opening up this morning. Boston police and FBI agents on the scene after deadly gunfire pierced the quiet of morning outside this CVS in Roslindale.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, he must have did something crazy for him to be, under FBI investigation.
Authorities say a Boston police officer and an FBI agent shot and killed a man after he came at them with a large military-style knife. Molly Hannon says her father was in the CVS at the time.
He said he heard like 3 shots, and then people just kind of ran outside to see what was happening. But he stayed inside CVS and waited till it all died down and went home.
Neighbors were further stunned to learn the suspect was under surveillance by the Joint Terrorism Task Force. The FBI and Boston police say they've been following him around the Boston area for several weeks. This morning, police say the suspect became violent when police approached him.
Bad things can happen anywhere, no matter how safe the place is that you feel like you're living.
Now neighbors want to know exactly why police had their eye on that suspect.
I mean, all these police, it must be something serious, but I'm glad they caught him. What if he did something else crazy down the road, could have killed us all or something.
Indeed, several neighbors around here say if the man was up to no good, they're glad he was stopped. That's the story live from Roslindale. I'm Byron Barnett, 7 News.
All right, we're also getting reaction to the shooting from the brother of the man shot.
Yeah, more from social media. 7's Jennifer Egan continuing our coverage with what the brother said on Facebook.
And Kim, the suspect's older brother tells a different version of what happened from police. After he was shot, Raheem's brother posted the following on Facebook, quote, "This morning while at the bus stop in Boston, my youngest brother, Usama Raheem, was waiting for the bus to go to his job. He was confronted by 3 Boston police officers and subsequently shot in the back 3 times. He was on his cell phone with my dear father during the confrontation, needing a witness. His last words to my father, who heard the shots, were, 'I can't breathe.'" And the family has not released a formal statement yet. The brother saying once they've had time to grieve, they will be speaking out, though. In the newsroom, Jennifer Egan, 7 News.
The investigation into today's shooting stretching far beyond that parking lot in Roslindale. Police in Everett also raiding a home earlier today that may have ties to the suspect. 7's Dan Housley is live in Everett with the latest there.
Well, sources are telling us there's another suspect who's been watched by the Joint Terrorism Task Force inside the home you see behind me, the white triple-decker that the police van is backed up to. Just behind the van, you see a space between the door, and there's another prisoner van behind it there. We believe that any minute now police may bring out the man they've been looking for, put him into that van, and take him away. But this is a scene that's been going on for almost 9 hours now.
Everett police, backed up by state and federal law enforcement, moved in on this house about 8 this morning, just an hour after police shot the knife-wielding terror suspect in Roslindale. Neighbors here shocked by the sudden rush of heavily armed officers.
I saw a line of what looked like SWAT team members dressed in full camo gear, helmets, shield, battering ram, and a bunch of machine guns, and they just kind of marched straight into the building.
Neighbors haven't seen anyone taken out of the building. Early on, they were told to stay inside their homes.
Really scary because my daughter did not get to go to school.
Why not?
Because I couldn't go out.
Sources tell 7 News the scene here is related to the Roslindale confrontation and also involves a suspect already being closely watched by the Joint Terrorism Task Force. The thought of a suspected terrorist living right next door has many here rattled.
They're among us. They live underneath us, over us. We say hi to them every day, and they're out to hurt us. You know, hurt the police and everybody.
Police suddenly more active in the last 10 or 15 minutes. It appears they may be ready to take an individual out of the house and into a transport van that's just on the other side of the police command center there. We'll stay on this one for you and let you know when that happens. We're live in Everett. Dan Housley, 7 News.
Our big story coverage continues with more on the investigation. And for that, we go back to the suspect's Roslindale neighborhood. We are hearing from a neighbor who saw Raheem just a little while before the shooting happened. 7's Kelly O'Hara live there in the neighborhood with more details on that angle. Kelly.
That's right, Kim. You got it. This neighbor saw him before this shooting happened, just a short while beforehand, and he says that his neighbor, the 26-year-old, was acting really, really strange. Since that shooting this morning, you can see this neighborhood has just been in lockdown. You can see a black van right there. It is blocking a street to the home that Raheem shared with his mother, the 26-year-old, living here for quite some time. Neighbor said he was a nice guy and they never had any problems with him. This is hopefully a new video you're looking at. We just were able to get a little while ago. You can see investigators still out here, FBI and Boston police, just really sectioning off this whole area, going in, trying to figure out exactly what happened and why, Mr. Raheem's actions were what they allegedly were, according to the FBI. And neighbors describe his actions this morning. Take a listen.
Had a very puzzled expression on his face, so I didn't stop to talk to him.
It seemed unusual?
Very unusual.
It disturbed you a little bit?
Yeah, normally we have conversations, we talk to each other maybe 10, 15 minutes, something about his facial expression. I kept walking. I was in and out of the store in like a minute. Totally surprising. Just you never know who lives next door.
That neighbor thanking a man who he says is very, very nice and always very cordial. He says you never know who lives next door. This man, a suspect, potentially terrorism related. Police have been out here all morning and all afternoon long, and will be out here, I'm sure, all evening as well, because police are still out here in that home trying to figure out exactly what is going on. Reporting live in Roslindale this evening, Kelly O'Hara, 7 News.
And stay with 7 News on air and online for continuing coverage of the deadly police-involved shooting. You can find expanded coverage on our website. That's, of course, WHGH.com.
Still ahead this evening, we are following 2 other breaking stories. There's been an anthrax scare here in Massachusetts. Active spores sent to a private lab. We'll tell you what we've just learned from government investigators.
Also breaking, Roger Goodell making a final decision about who will hear Tom Brady's appeal.
And at 5:30 this evening, we have new developments to pass along in the trial of Edwin Alamany. Today, prosecutors showing the jury new video of him just hours after his arrest for Amy Lord's murder.
And we are keeping an eye on that breaking news, a deadly police-involved shooting in Roslindale. A man under surveillance by the Joint Terrorism Task Force killed after police say he charged at them with a military-style knife. We'll continue to follow this breaking story throughout the night.
Get you up to speed on some other breaking news today. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health has confirmed the source of active anthrax spores delivered to a private lab in Marlborough. The U.S. Department of Defense sent them. It was a mistake, and they've since been frozen. The Department of Public Health now working with the federal government to securely get the anthrax back to the Defense Department. We know similar shipments were mistakenly sent to 23 other labs. The Pentagon and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are investigating.
And more breaking news on Tom Brady's appeal of his 4-game suspension in connection with Deflategate. Sports Director Joe Ambrosino is live in the newsroom with these breaking details. Joe.
Roger Goodell once again saying that protecting the integrity of the game is the most important responsibility as commissioner, and that the league's collective bargaining agreement gives him the authority to hear any appeal in a conduct detrimental proceeding. So Goodell will hear Tom Brady's appeal on June 23rd. In a letter, Goodell citing that he is empowered to hear the appeal under the league's collective bargaining agreement, something the players union agreed to in August of 2011. That agreement is set to expire in 5 years, so that's not going anywhere. Goodell rejects the notion that being called to the witness stand disqualifies him from hearing the appeal because he says he has no firsthand knowledge of the facts. As for the claims about his impartiality, Goodell addresses those as well, adding, quote, "My mind is open. There has been no prejudgment and no bias that warrants recusal." So with that last line, Goodell is either leaving the door open for a reduced suspension for Tom Brady or just trying to appear impartial, which is more likely at this point. Reporting live in the newsroom, Joe Ambrosino, 7 News.
Following a developing story, and we're going to Massachusetts General Hospital for this one. First, we can tell you Secretary of State John Kerry is on the mend after successful surgery for a broken leg. That was the scene last night as the secretary arrived in that ambulance, escorted by authorities late in the evening. 71 years old. He broke a thigh bone biking in France over the weekend. His spokesperson says Secretary Kerry will make a full recovery.
New developments now as one of the friends of the Boston Marathon bomber learns his fate. Diaz Kaderbayev has been sentenced to 6 years behind bars. The UMass Dartmouth student pled guilty to removing Tsarnaev's backpack from his dorm room after the bombings.
Today, he did take the stand. 7's Nicole Oliverio with the very latest from the federal courthouse.
Diaz Kaderbayev sentenced to 6 years in prison for his role in impeding the marathon bombing investigation. Kaderbayev, the college friend of convicted bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, stood before the judge today and apologized to the bombing victims. He acknowledged he should have called police, saying, quote, "I think how stupid I was that I would do such a thing. If I could go back, I would change it. I am a different person now. The person I remember back then, I am ashamed of that person. I want to ask for understanding." His father was in court and through a translator reacted to his son's words.
Proud for my son because he made this speech. He understands what he has done and he has grown up.
In the days following the bombing, Kaderbayev immediately recognized Tsarnaev from surveillance photos and the two texted about it. They texted until 2 hours before the murder of MIT officer Sean Collier. Kaderbayev also removed evidence from Tsarnaev's dorm room, including a backpack, laptop, and fireworks. U.S. prosecutors argued that at no time did he heed the FBI's plea for help from the public. and the judge agreed that he had a moral obligation to do so. His father says he believes at the time his son did not know what he was getting himself into.
Had he known what he was doing and had he understood what he was doing, we wouldn't been standing here.
Now, before today's hearing, the family of Sean Collier wrote a letter to the judge saying that they believed, had Kartabayev called police, that Sean's death could have been prevented. In South Boston, Nicole Oliverio, 7 News.
All right, we will warm up. That's the bottom line. However, it's not like 70s and 80s. We'll take a look.
And we continue to follow this breaking news here. Officers opened fire on a suspect carrying a military-style knife in Rosendale. The investigation revealing he had a possible connection to ISIS. The very latest coming up.
We have more on the breaking news. We're following this from Warwick, Rhode Island. The FBI is at a home there, and sources tell us this is the third location connected to the man shot and killed in the first location. Happened this morning in Roslindale.
Yeah, this would be the third location we've seen investigators at. They've also had a home in Everett. They're raiding that home. We'll continue to follow this breaking story.
Now, 7 Weather with Chief Meteorologist Pete Bouchon.
We are crawling back to normal over the next few days. It's going to take a few to get back close to normal, and I'm not promising we actually make it to the low 70s in Boston anytime soon. Cool mornings. Showers return by Friday. 48 degrees, a high of 49 in Boston. Another cold record high temperature, and rain. Wow, over 4 inches from Milford to Salisbury. In select towns, it's hopscotched around that 4+ inch amount, but Tewksbury had some, and we put a big dent in the drought with that. Freetown, 2.84, and Hudson, Mass, about 2.3. The rain slowly pulling away off Cape, and you know, Cape Cod had a rainy day, so what do you know? Well, I think that was a good thing because it's not often that we get a lot of rain on the Cape in the summer, now that we're in meteorological summer. So we'll take what we can get. Thunderstorms rarely come to the Cape, as we know, in the summertime. So water is good, and especially since we've been in this drought for so long. Tomorrow, breaking up the clouds, bringing back the sunshine piecemeal. I'm not going for full blue sky first thing in the morning. There will be some clouds around, but we expect those to erode and go to some sunshine, mostly sunny skies by the afternoon. So the afternoon looks good and bright and beautiful, but the temperature is cool because the wind will still be out of the northeast, and that northeast wind keeps us cool from Marblehead to Boston down through Duxbury. 60s, mid-60s, Metro West and out through Route 2. 7-day forecast. Friday, there are your showers. We keep it in the 60s and 50s coast tomorrow, and low 60s at the coast on Thursday, Friday. Beach weather, backseat. Maybe this weekend, I don't know. 68 and 71, I'll let you decide that. But I'm liking the look of the weekend after kind of a cool, wet week. I'll see you at 5:30.
The police-involved shooting today involves 3 locations. Dan Housley is in Everett, and we're hearing reports of an arrest there. Dan?
Well, there was a second suspect taken into custody here in Everett. Behind me, you see a police mobile command center right in front of a white awning and a white triple-decker. That's where police have been surrounding all morning. And just a couple of minutes ago, they brought a man out onto that deck and into a police van that was on the other side. They were obviously trying to block any view of the arrest. And in fact, then that van took off the other way down the street, away from our cameras. But we did get a glimpse of a man being brought out of that house after being told earlier today that there was a man who had been watched by the Joint Terrorism Task Force inside that house, and that's what brought police to this location at about 8 o'clock this morning, just about an hour after that confrontation in Roslindale. So it would appear that the man that they have been watching, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, has been taken into custody by Everett police at this point, but nothing official from the police department. We're live in Everett. Dan Housley, 7 News.
All right, we'll be going back to Dan Housley for more on that man and a possible identity as our coverage continues here.
Definitely. We'll be right back. All right, there's another 60 minutes of 7 News ahead. I'm Ryan Schulteis.
I'm Kim Casey. Everything you need to know about this big Boston story coming up right now.